Well, hello and happy not Saturday but Sunday, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We are recording this as the Canucks defeated the New York Rangers by a hair, 3-2, and before the Flames play the Anaheim Ducks, House of Horrors 1 as I've now called it. So we are right in between of that, so if you're going to be listening after the Anaheim game, some of the stuff might be irrelevant, but some of the stuff I think could be relevant, what we talk about today, particularly with the Flames, but we'll get into them. Of course, my name is Kevin Olenek, and you can follow me, of course, personally at KEVOLE. You can follow the Hockey Podcast at podcast_hockey, Facebook, the Hockey Podcast, and yes, so Facebook, the Hockey Podcast, Twitter, Podcast Hockey, Kevol. We have Heidi with us. Heidi was unsure if she was going to come on, but I think we convinced her. Hello.
Hello. No, I was gonna come on. I would never ditch the show unless I had to.
Oh, that's fair. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There. And Sean is with us. Hello, Sean.
Hello. It's been a good Sunday, a good weekend of sports. So I'm looking forward to talking.
Yes, it'll be very fun. And Tyler is with us as well.
Hey guys.
Yes. How's it going?
It's all right.
Yeah.
I had a couple of out of town games to referee this weekend, so I've had enough of a weekend, I would say. But took a bit of a fall and slide yesterday in Prince Rupert, which got everybody excited there. But
oh, really? Are you okay?
Yeah. I'm okay, but yeah, a little sore.
Yeah, it had happened in the game I called this morning with the Vancouver Canadians. The linesman hit the player, jumped into the play, and he just ran into the linesman, and they both collapsed. The linesman was down for a bit, but he came out all right. So, it's a tough gig, that ref business. You know, it's a tough gig. What is also a tough gig is the radio industry. I know this personally, having to try to attempt to put my foot in the door, and have been asked to leave twice. Tyler has been in the radio industry, so Tyler, you know this firsthand as well.
Yep. And
it was a very tough week in the Vancouver industry, and it actually did impact Calgary as well. Particularly we'll start with Sportsnet. They let go John Jang of the Playbook. Him and Satyar Shah have that version of that show is now over. Satyar Shah is moving to the 4 o'clock hour with Andrew Walker, and with that show. And then Cam Mitchell, a producer, was also moved, along with Kellen Tochkin's a new producer as well. Cam Mitchell's been around a while. And probably one of the more, it's safe to say, one of the more popular voices in Vancouver Canucks reporting, and Vancouver Canucks media personalities now. Rick Dahliwal was also let go, but he was able to land on his feet quite quickly, within 48 hours, and particularly after Matt Sakaris tweeted that this was a very tragic decision. Many people have said that this was a tragic decision. Rick Dahliwal was let go from Sportsnet and landed on his feet in a couple of days, and is now working at TSN 1040. Scott Rintoul is moving to the Playbook Hour, the 9 to 12, which actually it affects Calgary because that will be simulcast on Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. So Heidi will now have the opportunity, and Sean in Calgary will have the opportunity to listen to Scott Rintoul on 960 if they wish, replacing Jim Rome. I guess the way that I want to start this is I was listening to Rick Dahliwal on Friday on the debut with Donnie and the Moj. I listened back to that. And Donnie and the Moj said something very interesting. They said, it seems to me that if you have a personality and you work hard, it is now seemingly tougher to move into this business. I don't really know where to begin in some ways, but I guess maybe let's start with sport. Let's start with Sportsnet. Let's start there, because they are the rights holders of the NHL. They're the right holders of the Canucks. They are the right holders of the Flames. and I'm feeling that they are not connecting with the fans as well as they could. Pardon my pun, do you agree or disagree with that?
I can't really speak too much for Calgary, as I don't listen too much to the local radio here because of my Canucks fandom, and I stream 650 or 1040 actually more often than not through the internet, and but yeah, I would agree that they haven't really found a way to connect with the Canucks fan base. That's for sure. They had something special in having someone like Dahliwal to break news and make their morning show a bit of something to listen to. But they were up against a juggernaut in 1040 and a duo in Halford and Bruff that really do get this fan base and really do understand what it's like to be in the dark depths of Canuck fandom. Yeah, I would say for sure that they haven't really been able to find their footing as much as I think we thought they would, and I think they thought they would once they took over all the rights of the broadcasting, both TV, radio, and all that.
Yeah, not a negative comment on the quality of the personalities on 650. I think the problem that they have is that they're just not as big of names as what 1040 can offer, and it's hard to really cut into 1040's audience as a result of that. Scott Rintoul was kind of the one big name. Well, there's Sat Shaw moving over from the production side to an on-air role at 650, and Rintoul moving from 1040 over to 650, and now they've taken Rintoul off their afternoon drive show, and they have him doing a show that I think is going to be a bit of a challenge for them to make work in two radio markets. So, those kinds of decisions I think are why they're having some trouble at 650. And Andrew Walker, he's not a Toronto guy originally, but he came from Sportsnet 590, and I think he's been a difficult sell for some people, even though I personally enjoy what he has to offer. But the name power there. When you're talking about Don Taylor and you got Blake Price and Matt Sakaris and Halford and Bruff over at 1040, those are some pretty strong names to go up against.
Well, I think that the other thing, and I'm going to be sorry, Heidi, if I jumped in. I think here's the other problem that I think big picture with Sportsnet that I'm seeing is with 650, a lot of their personalities with Andrew Walker. Andrew Walker is also a Calgary guy. He's not from here. He's not from Vancouver. Sobalski, he's from here, but perception not necessarily a Vancouverite. Halford, Bruff, Dahliwal, Donnie, Moj, Sakaris, Price, they have a root in the community, and I think that is where TSN, I feel, has an advantage, that they relate to the fan base a little bit more. But I also think one of the other things that I think in the bigger picture was, and I'm not saying that TSN is any more innocent than this and not, because they're really not, but Sportsnet has spent a lot more time focusing on Toronto than they have on every other Canadian team, and I feel that this is a little bit of a turnoff. I think that this is part of where Sportsnet is losing its audience, is they are so focused on Toronto at the sacrifice of every other team.
Sean?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. I would say that Sobalski, he's from Vancouver. He went to Toronto and worked a bit, but you could say that about Blake Price. Matt Sakaris is originally from Ottawa, and moved out. So I think the issue is that it takes a long time to gain the trust, to gain the name power and the brand recognition for these as a radio host, and when you don't get the time to build that, I think that hurts things as well. I think Jean Zhang had a potential to build that. They had a name brand recognition in Rick Dahliwal that they let go for some reason. They have Scotty Rintoul, but now he's gonna become more. He's not going to be as flamboyant and focused on the Vancouver market, because he's going to be simulcast on 960. So he's going to have to play two markets at this point, and they're two markets that are more rivals in all the respective leagues that they play in. And I think it'll be good, but I don't think it's necessarily going to help them build what they want, what they need to cut into 1040.
I mean, to me, it just looks like a attempt at cheapening the cost of filling the airtime in the middle of the day.
Yeah, that's what it does to me too. And I think it hurt. Yeah, I agree with Sean that it hurts the Vancouver market, and it really does hurt the Calgary market, because there's no reason to me why they cannot have a 10 to 12 show local show there at all. I'm baffled that they don't, because Edmonton, a smaller market, and TSN is able to find a way to they can run a midday show there. But Heidi, what I feel like we're keeping you out of this in some way. Like, Heidi, what do you think?
Well, as somebody who's never listened to any of the Vancouver stuff, like, I really can't comment on like the personalities and stuff. So it's hard to say that way. I actually honestly thought, when I heard that you guys started like mentioning that these cuts were happening in Vancouver, I was like, oh, are they going to start cutting people in Calgary too? And I guess they didn't. I'm happy that there'll be something different other than Jim Rome, because I never wanted to listen to that show. I don't listen to 960 a ton, but every once in a while I put it on in the morning when I'm getting ready, or sometime in the afternoon when I'm at work, and I just need to have just like random voices talking on the radio while I'm just doing stuff. But yeah, it's really interesting, just to kind of like that idea of like having to connect to your fan base. And like, I don't know, is nobody being let go from 960 because somehow that connects to like the guys in Calgary are doing it right, versus is somebody doing something wrong in Vancouver? Like, I'm just very unsure, just because I haven't heard as it's being someone who's never lived in Vancouver either. Like, I don't know why there was a disconnect there, if that disconnect actually existed.
Well, I think in terms of Calgary, it's been but they've kept the personnel to a minimum, and they've been running that station on more of a bare bones setup than 650 did. 650 came into Vancouver and had to try and compete with an already established radio station in 1040. And then try and not only compete, but you're going to want to try and pass them. So they loaded up on talent. They loaded up on matching up, having morning, early morning, mid morning, afternoon, and drive home shows to try and take away the listenership from 1040. And I think that part of it is that it's just I think the Jean Zhang and the Jean Zhang one, I think, was definitely a cost cutting cut, because they aren't winning the listenership war in Vancouver at all. Just as we were saying, the deep seated routine of listening to Halford and Bruff in the morning, and then you've got Sakaris and Price on your drive home. Those are your two big money making shows. Like, more people listen during those hours than they do during work hours and during the late nights. So you're not going to, if you can't compete with that, then you're not going to make the money with the advertisers.
Yeah, that's the big thing, and also it's really interesting because Canuck Clay IMOO put a poll out a couple of days ago about which channel was more listened to, and it was 76% of 807 votes were for TSN. So Sportsnet is young, but they still haven't cracked that market in the way that they think that they could have, and there's a number of reasons for that. But I think it's going to be interesting. I do hope for the best for Kellen and Cam and John Jang. I know a schoolmate of mine, a buddy of mine at school, is friends with John Jang, so I know the guy's a really hardworking guy, and I certainly hope for the best. And Dahliwal was one of the first employees at 1040, so it's good for him to be back there. So, and for me, I'm happy I was sad for I was gutted for Dahliwal because he was one of those guys. He actually reached out to me and asked to listen to my work, so he's been a help to me going forward. So I'm glad to see him get back on his feet, and it's going to be interesting going forward to see what happens with all of that. Do you hear a noise in the background?
Slightly, like there's squeaky wheels or something.
Yes, it is there is outside of my bedroom door is a dryer. So if you are hearing squeaky wheels, that's what that is. I do apologize for that. I have no control over this. So, yes. So I'm sorry. It sounded like we were a little bit distracted. I moved a little bit further away because it was really loud in my ear. So, so there we go. That I was. There, yes. Sorry about that, but yeah, I have no control over that. Someone needed to use a dryer. I can't stop them. Okay, whatever. But today, this weekend, the Canucks. We'll start with the Canucks, and then we'll get into the Flames because I have some interesting takes on that. The Canucks had an interesting weekend where they lost 1-0 in Jersey in the Hughes Bowl. And Jack Hughes scored his first goal against his brother. His brother wasn't on the ice, but it was versus his brother's team. And this afternoon, they won 3-2. They started off really fast, scored 3 goals in the first period, and had to hang on for dear life to win. And there was something I'm reading in these stats here, Sean and Tyler. I'm noticing something here in the summary. I haven't seen this on a road game. Can you tell me what is this thing called beside in brackets called PP? PP? Is that PPG? I'm reading on the website. Is that a power play goal? Did the Canucks score a power play goal on the road?
Yes, you did see that today. For once.
Yeah, it looked. They've made some changes on the unit. They put Quinn Hughes on the power play, which Canucks fandom has been clamoring for since Hughes signed his contract. And then they also they actually flipped Pettersson and Besser to their strong sides. So they took away that one timer option. But what that's done is give them more depth and ability to move up and down the boards on the power play and create more passing lanes and create more offense that way. Because I think what's happened is that they've become so reliant on creating those one-timer shots for Pettersson and Besser from too far out that the power play's gotten stagnant, and teams have been able to predict exactly what the Canucks are going to do and defend them properly.
Tyler? Did we lose Tyler?
I'm back.
Oh, okay. What were your thoughts?
As far as the Canucks power play, they've been getting lots of opportunities. I think just finish has been a challenge. I don't know if they're trying too hard to get Pettersson the puck, or if they're shooting from range too far away. I'm not really sure which one is more of an issue, but I felt like they've been moving it around fine. Quinn Hughes certainly looks comfortable back there. It's just one of those things where it takes a while for it to break through, and it did today.
Yeah,
I also think that part of that is Pettersson and Besser haven't quite found their range. Shooting wise, so until they do, I think having this new setup where you swap them and you've got Pettersson on the left and Besser on the right on their strong sides, I think will help open up more passing lanes and more passing lanes into high danger areas for like Bo Horvat or JT Miller. So I think that's basically where they're going at this point.
In terms of the top 6 forwards for the Canucks, and we'll get to where Michael Ferland fits on this. On a grade of 1 to 10, where would you rate them?
I think they're probably sitting at a 6 or a 7 right now. I think Pettersson and Besser are slowly finding their game. Bo Horvat is playing quite well. JT Miller is probably your best forward at this point, and then you've got a trio of wingers who have sort of been sliding in and out of the rest of the top 6, and well, actually 4. Tanner Pearson has been a mainstay, and he's played quite well, but he isn't necessarily someone who's going to be driving the play. And then you've got Josh Levo, Michael Ferland, and now Jake Virtanen, who've all gotten shots in the top 6 to see what they can do. So I think there's definitely still room for improvement, which is really nice. A really nice problem to have when you're playing so well and winning. Was it now 4 out of the last 5 games?
As far as the Canucks top players, Pettersson and Besser in particular, right now the strength of the schedule for the Canucks, it's been a pretty favorable schedule. They're winning these games. They're 5-3. Looks pretty good in the standings, but against the stronger competition, those guys have to get it going here, or it's not gonna look like the Canucks are as good as it seems right now.
Because thinking out after what happened yesterday, and there was a bit of a controversy. Noel Brown was trending. Of course, some are calling for him to be removed, and I don't think that's this necessarily is the solution. I think what you saw today is probably more the solution. But in terms of top 6, I don't know if I see enough skill. I think there's a lot of effort, but I think they could use another skill type of player there. And I know what someone's going to say. There's a guy named Goldobin down there. If you bring him up, he could do that. But I don't think the Canucks believe that anymore. So I think that one of the things they're going to have to look as the trade deadline approaches is probably another skilled forward.
I think that's maybe something they look at. I think there's a good chance they give Berchi a shot before they make a trade. It might help raise his trade value, and B, it might just be the missing puzzle piece that they need. If not, then yeah, I think they will be. I think there will be one or two more sort of bigger trades that they'll make at some point this season. If anything, just to alleviate the roster crunch that they're in with the numbers of players that are buried in the AHL.
I think it's only a matter of time before an injury forces a guy like a Berchi or a Goldobin into being called up. So we'll just see how things unfold. Right now it's the old knock on wood, it's for health and everything, but it's for me, it's not a matter of if, it's when they'll need one of those guys.
I could see a controversy coming, though, because the way Cole Lynn's playing, some may want to see him up before Goldie. I think there could be a controversy there. But
the other issue is that they still need to find a way to get Adam Gaudette into games, whether it is up in the NHL or in the AHL. So what depending on what they do with him as well comes into play.
Yeah, that as well. How did Thatcher Demko look?
Great, I thought.
Yeah, that's he looked really, really solid. especially in the way he rebounded in the Detroit game when they gave up that goal first shift, and it wasn't his fault though. But they gave up that goal first shift, and he comes back and just plays very solid. He looks like he's about to take the next step in his development, which is going to make things very interesting going forwards with Markstrom getting a new contract at the end of this season. And we were talking off air about how we forgot that Keith Kincaid is a Montreal Canadian, and how goalies change teams so often now. And I think that's just the way things have gone with we're in a bit of an interesting time with goalies where the scouting of them and the analysis of them stats wise is a step behind the players, the skaters, and you're seeing teams not other than your top 3-4 players, the top 3-4 goalies. You're not seeing teams wanting to necessarily commit long term to a goalie until they're absolutely fully certain that that's who he is, and you know that he can be play at that level for that full length of term. And I don't know, as good as Markstrom's looked, I'm not sure the Canucks are quite there yet, and especially with Demko looking like he could be ready to take that next step, or they're going to have an interesting decision to make come January when they can start talking extension with him.
For me, what was great about Demko, just very quickly here, Kevin, is to me it's different than okay, you're playing on the back-to-back and the starter's taking a day off. Like the starter was away for a stretch of games. The backup is some call-up, so there's a little more pressure on Demko to play well and not have to get hooked, right? And so he still, was up to the task and had a strong opponent in St. Louis and looked good, looked comfortable, looked like he belonged there, and looks like he's continuing to progress. So all very encouraging signs. Kept the door shut when required. The game yesterday against the Devils, just one goal allowed. He didn't really have much chance on that. It was a power play goal, and that's it. Otherwise, he kept the door shut.
Yeah. I thought he's shown some great progress considering where we saw him and some of the, I think, considering, I think I'm impressed with what I'm seeing from him. And I think that will be good. And I do agree. I think that's a story in 2020 that we'll be talking a lot more about is the Markstrom Demko part. Bo Horvat, Sean, you mentioned that he has been playing well. I think there might be some people that may disagree with you in terms of offensive production. But at the same time, I think it is fair to say that when you actually wear that C on the jersey, on the chest, there is an adjustment of how you play. Heidi will note that Dad, or Gio, as Giordano had that issue as well when Ginla had it. There is an adjustment when you become the leader on the team. And I think we're seeing a little bit of the growing pain there for Horvat. I don't know if you see it the same way, but I felt he's been a little bit, he's struggling a little bit, but I think, it's a natural struggle.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit in that, and that's part of how I evaluated his play. I think there is some, you do have to just, once that C is on your chest, there is some sort of adjustment you have to take and get used to the pressure of being the captain. But I think he has played well. I think that line, him and Tanner Pearson have played well. They just haven't produced. They haven't found a way to produce that. That's just what's so interesting about the Canucks right now is that they are playing quite well, and they're on a bit of a roll in terms of winning games, but they're doing it without having classic Pettersson goals, classic Besser goals, classic Bo Horvat bull rushes to net and scoring. But they're finding ways to win, and Horvat's all with the new setup that they're trying to do with a more of a top 9 role. I think you're seeing Bo Horvat's line take a lot more of the heavy lifting in terms of matchups. And I think when you look at it, if he's had a couple games where he's been buried possession wise, but for the most part he's been playing those tough minutes for about 50-50, and if you can do that and then pot a goal or two every couple games, I think that's fine. That's going to be really, really good. And then and part of his production woes, I think, also comes back to the power play. He got a power play goal today, but he's I think that part will come around.
Just feels to me like Bo's squeezing the stick a little bit. I think the natural adjustment that you refer to there, Kevin, is just a thing of putting more pressure on yourself. Like otherwise, I think Bo is playing the game that he always plays, but it's just when the goal total in the stats is low, and your forward like Bo expects to produce, that frustration can creep in, and then it's just a little added pressure when you're in the role of captain and you figure you have to do something every night. Yeah. But for him, it's about playing solid more than the stat line. That's what it should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think he's giving them solid play nonetheless.
Yep, that's fair. Heidi, did you have anything to...
I don't know. I had this conversation with somebody about something else today, but I think he's only been the captain for a week, something like that.
Yeah, it feels like much longer, but it's really not been that long.
Yeah, I don't think there's any point that anyone should be, not to say freaking out about it, but I'm sure he'll be just fine. But I guess with that captain, with that C on that jersey, I guess it just puts more scrutiny from the fans. Would you guys agree with that?
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody's asking for somebody different, but for Bo, I mean, now is the feeling I got to do something, or else he's going to feel like there's pressure from the fans.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. One more quick thing. Harmon, the boy genius, tweeted something out earlier today about Michael Furlan's minutes. He played 7:15 today against the Rangers, and his ice time has crashed. I'm quoting him. Are you concerned about Michael Furlan at this point?
I would say yes. But what were realistic expectations for Furlan in the first place, right? I mean, he came in as a notable name for playoff history there between the Canucks and Flames, and Furlan was with Carolina and they went on a good run last year and all that. But I mean, what were the expectations really for Furlan, right?
Well, I think the part of the issue is that when he came in, they put him right on that line with Pettersson and Besser and thought that he would be able to. I think there was some expectation that he would come in and be a 20-goal scorer with them on that line, but there was also some expectation that he would just be basically what JT Miller is doing. That was what the expectation for him was, minus the production. Just going in, making sure that there's some that he was retrieving pucks and being a nuisance in front of the net and opening up space for Pettersson and Besser.
Yeah, we talked about this before. Devin and I talked about this. Heidi and I talked about this. From people from a Flames perspective, he has not been consistent, and I think that this is going to be to me, I'm going to be fascinated what this relationship with Furlan and Travis Green is going to be, because he did not put up with a lack of effort from Nikolai Goldom, and he hasn't been enamored with Jake Virtanen when he's had a lack of effort. And if he's going to see that from Michael Furlan, I don't think Michael Furlan's going to be playing a lot. So I'm going to be fascinated by that relationship going forward. And it's fair game if he was a little bit overrated, but he's a streaky guy, so he can turn that around. But it's going to be interesting going forward. I'm fascinated by that Furlan Green relationship going forward, because I don't think Graham is going to I don't see Travis Green putting up with Ferland and his non-lackadaisical play all that often. So, okay, the flu happened, but obviously from what Travis Green has seen, something different is going on.
I think maybe a little bit, but I think he's just getting back to normal at this point. So I don't think I don't think you can really get too. I think it's concerning. It's not worrisome at this point for me. It's something to be noted and to look for the next handful of games. And if in the next handful of games his minutes don't improve and his play doesn't improve, then there's an issue. But I do think that if you look, he lost 8 pounds from the flu. I think there's a lot to look to give to that and not to overlook that. So I think he's gonna. I don't think there's been a lack of effort. I just think there's been a lack of just not being up to speed just yet. So if he's still in this position in the next. After the next 3, 4, 5 games, I think then yes, and then it becomes worrisome for me.
Okay, all right. Anything else we need to talk about the Canucks? Okay, that silence tells me no. So Heidi was on a bit of a tweet storm last night, a little bit in our messages. She talked a little bit up there, but to translate it in one way, after the Flames. Performance last night against the Los Angeles Kings, I'll summarize her tweets this way.
Yeah, well, that team sure did suck last night. They just plain sucked. Well, I've seen teams suck before, but they were the suckiest bunch of sucks that ever sucked.
Homer, watch your mouth.
I gotta go. My damn wiener kids are listening.
Yeah, so
That's one of my favorite Simpsons clips.
Heidi, would that be accurate? Was that kind of pretty much? Did I summarize everything in a condensed 10-second form?
Yes, you sure did.
Okay, yeah. So yes, the Flames had. All right, so I want to start here because this has not been paid enough attention to here. So Calgary media, you need to listen up here. Road games for the Calgary Flames. They have only allowed less than 3 goals once. That was against the Dallas Stars. They have not gotten a first goal in any of their first games. And again, we are recording before the game in Anaheim. So if the streak ends tonight, before that, great. That is 1 out of 6. They have allowed the first goal within the first 5.5 minutes in in 3 straight games: Vegas, San Jose, and LA. At home, they have a shutout against the Canucks. They allowed 1 goal against the Flyers. They allowed 1 goal against the Red Wings. And, of course, they had that disastrous game against the Kings at home. That was one of the worst periods. So take that away. I am starting to see a home-road comparison disconnect here. Am I the only one noticing this? Is this something that should be concerning, or am I overreacting?
No, you're not overreacting at all, because that's just what the score is telling us, is that, at least for this season, to get, for it to start, that's the Flames are just not doing good on the road. But I would say that the Flames are also just not getting off to good starts. Even I thought the game against Detroit this week, the Flames didn't get off to a super hot start either. It's just I think Detroit kind of might have just fallen apart as the game went on. But it's okay. It's easier to recover from those bad starts when you're at home. But if you're in somebody else's barn, then it's kind of a different story. So I think that's what's kind of contributing to that, maybe that shitty road record there. So that basically I'm thinking it's got something to do with, for whatever reason, they just can't seem to like get the game going right away.
One of the things that I'm seeing from Twitter reaction to the Flames here lately is concerns and questions and commentary about work ethic. I don't know. Like are the players not listening to the coach? Like, is the message kind of starting to wear off here a little bit? Like, because if that's the case, that's a pretty major concern, I would think.
Well, let's see. Bill Peters had some things to say about that last night after the game, and there was something that happened during the game as well. But let's hear from Bill.
Yeah, we did. I thought we had a good feeling coming into this.
So let's go back. That was not what I was looking for. Hang on.
We had a good centers going, to be honest with you. I didn't see guys being strong down low or making too many plays. So, but that's right across the board. We weren't invested in the game, and we got what we deserved.
So basically, if you missed that, he basically said that Peter said they basically got what they deserved last night. And then there was the highlighted moment on Hockey Night in Canada where Peters was basically chewing the team out in between the commercial break and then back, noted not only on TV but on radio as well. And then the line shifted, and it was Backlund, Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Monahan was moved down to the third, fourth line. He was playing with Lucic and Bennett, and they switched the defense around. They had Anderson with Giordano, Brody and Hanifin, Hamonic and Shillington. And Shillington's not playing tonight, so Michael Stone will draw back in. But he threw everything into a blender after a pretty disastrous second period. So if they are not listening, Tyler, I think Bill Peters gave a message that says you better.
Yeah.
Yeah, this something that confuses me about this team sometimes is that there just seems to be a lack of heart, and I don't know why, like, where that comes from. Like, is it maybe Gio needs to be saying something in the room? Like, I can't see Bill Peters not talking to the guys about this, because he really praises work ethic and talks about it all the time, and is not afraid to call the players out. So, like, I'm very confused by that. Like, I don't think it's any resentment against the coach, but I haven't seen any evidence or like speculation of anything if there's anything going wrong with that. So I'm very confused, but I can see it on the ice. Like, when the Flames aren't playing good, like you can tell just the way they skate and the way that they're making passes, and things just don't seem to be crisp, and they just seem to be lazy, and their heads are just not in the game.
Tonight should be interesting. I mean, Anaheim's like a house of horrors for the Flames, and it's back-to-back, and last night wasn't very good. You've got we heard the comment from the coach there about getting what they deserved. I mean, if the effort level's poor tonight, that's to me a pretty strong indication that maybe the coach is losing this team. But we'll see how they respond. The Flames don't suck, okay? Like, they're just, I don't know, they're having a little trouble here with consistency at the beginning of the year, and they're having some problems on the road in particular, as you mentioned, Kevin, but, we're not very far into the season here for this sort of feeling surrounding the team.
Yeah, it struck me as odd that they didn't really show up for a Saturday night game when you've got the LA Kings in LA, and you've got the whole Doughty Tkachuk deal. You would think that they would have found a way to show up and at least make a game of that, but they didn't. And I don't understand why. Maybe they're fed up with that whole situation or what, but it doesn't. Yeah, there's some question marks there, and I agree with you, Tyler, in the fact that it's early on in the season. You can't really look too deep into it, because they could go on a run here, and in 2 weeks we're looking at it completely differently. So, but it's definitely, again, just like the Ferland situation. I think this is something that's concerning, but not worrisome at this point.
Yeah, the one thing that I do think is fascinating to me, and we'll go back to our playoff conversations when I talked about Sean Monahan. I know that we don't love Eric Francis. There's not a lot of love for Eric Francis, but I do think, and I do wonder if there was a message there to Sean Monahan from Bill Peters about his play. I mean, of course, you could not blame Rittich for last night anyway, and he's not playing tonight, but you could not blame Rittich for last night. I mean, the players, Noah Hannafin was used as a pylon on the first goal. And I'm going to just say this. I don't think Giordano has played as well as he has in the past. I think he's struggling a little bit. That's what my eyes are telling me. But that's one thing, so you can't blame that. But the message he gave moving Monahan down, I do think there's something there. And you go back to the playoffs, Monahan and Gaudreau were absolutely invisible last in the playoffs, and they've been invisible most of these playoff times here. And I'm wondering if there is something between Peters and Monahan that is not rubbing the right way.
It's hard. It's hard to say. Like, it could be that very well could be true. I'm not going to fault Peters too much for just putting the lines in a blender last night, because sometimes that's just what you do when your team is down and you got to try and spark some life into a game. Like, you might as well try something. But it's really tough to say. But like, I would definitely not argue with that whole thing about how Monahan and Johnny did not show up in the playoffs, like, at all. Like, it seems like when the games are on the line the most, it's like those guys disappear for some strange reason.
Yeah. That's certainly interesting. Flames news today: Alan Quine was called up because of salary constraints that they had to do. So Oliver Shillington's not playing, as mentioned. Michael Stone is playing. And Andrew Mangiapane is injured. There was speaking of stats, when Mangiapane scores, the Flames are 8-0-1, which Sean mocked because on messaging he said that all streaks come to an end. And Heidi responded, "It's all fascinating." But are we seeing an evolution in Mangiapane as a guy that's kind of, we're talking about, a little bit about Ferland taking a step down. Is Mangiapane a guy that's finally making a step up?
Well, with those stats, just it's kind of crazy that it's just a coincidence that happens. Like, he was looking really good, and I'm hoping he's not going to be out too long. But it sounds like it might be concussion issues. So, but he's definitely looked good, and he looked good that entire game until he went down. So, like, I'm pretty upset about that. So I'm hoping that he'll be okay and he'll be back. But yeah, I think he'll really take a step this year. I'm hopeful about it. Like, last year, maybe, like, he didn't play that badly last year, but I think now this kind of like second year of being up with the team, like, full time, then he'll get going.
In terms of what he brings, is he adds some depth to the Flames, and I think that's something that the Flames need to figure out the right combination. And when you've got a line that's got Lucic on it and Sam Bennett, who's as good as he can be, he's quite streaky as well. That line can be a bit of a black hole for offense at times, and if they can find a way to have Mangiapane create a line that can be one that can create offense depth wise, I think that's going to go far for really, 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 really do really good things for the Flames, and for when the Monahan and Gaudreau line doesn't necessarily produce the way they want.
Yeah, because at that game on I guess that was the game on Thursday, I think, that was the same game that, like, Mangiapane scored, but that was the same game that, like, I had never seen Lucic get so many shots on goal, like, at the same time, and I don't remember whether Bennett got a goal or not. I know definitely he was on that line and putting shots on that too. So it's really, I think that combination of those three guys are good. I think, and it was nice to see that line step up and the other line step up too, because they were getting a little bit concerned with all the top six scoring, and so the third and the fourth line need to bring that back. So hopefully the game on Saturday was just a blip in the radar.
Happened last Saturday too.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Tyler, were you going to say something?
Just in regards to last night with the Kings, I mean, are the Kings and the Flames head a little bit? You know, like, I think mentally there's a bit of a block that's going on there with the Kings.
Yeah, I probably
don't know, because you know, like that was frustration boiling over there last night, and it doesn't look like in the mental edge battle that the Flames are keeping up whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I would say that there's something there, and maybe the media did perpetuate it so much, and there was so much talk about it that there was just pressure going into that game, and they choked under the pressure.
Well, the one thing that I do also think is part of the head game, but I think the Kings can skate. The Kings have some good skaters. I mean, there's a lot of players that I'm not familiar with in terms of names, but they've got some speed. And that you go back to the Colorado series, it was a lot of speed that Colorado showed that the Flames were not able to match. So in some senses, I wonder if that's it. And maybe, yeah, I think you're right. I think they're living a little bit. The Kings are living maybe a little bit rent free in the Flames' head right now. I mean, that is 2 wins, 8 goals to 4 in the season, and this is a divisional opponent that I think, if the Flames were to be a home team in the playoffs or a playoff team, these are games you do need to win. So you wonder that a little bit. So that is interesting. It's a great point. And the other thing is Milan Lucic is playing his 900th game tonight.
That's amazing. Hey, just shows you how quickly time has flown by. You know, that he's at 900 games. I mean, it just doesn't seem like his career has been that long.
Yeah. No, I know. It was the late 2000s he entered the league, or late 2008, 2009 he enters the league, and now it's 900 games. It's like, where has time gone? Mm-hmm. You know, that is so fascinating. Yes. Anything else about the Flames that we need to talk about?
I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny seeing Gio Superman into that pile last night.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the only thing that was making me laugh about the game was just them showing over again, just him just full on just jumping right into that pile of players.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. That was pretty funny. We'll give him that. The other thing that happened there's a number of things that happened in the NHL, but the media it's always a little fascinating. We always, the media goes into the dressing room and they go to talk to the players and they're always looking for the quotes. And sometimes you get a little bit of the cliches, and sometimes, you didn't play well. We didn't get off to a good start. We need to be better. This, that, and the other thing. We need to get more shots on goal. This, that, and the other thing. But Jason Zucker had a little bit of a different take. And Jason Zucker basically said that his team needs to be better, including his coach. He put Bruce Boudreau in there. He basically, I'm going to pull up the exact quote here. Give me a moment. And if I find it on YouTube while we're talking, I'll play it. This is some good podcasting. I just realized I didn't. I came back trying to had it happen. I forgot to add this. But basically, he called out his teammates and included his coach in it. Are we okay with a player calling out a coach?
I'm going to say no to that one, Kevin. the coach is higher in the food chain on a sports team than the players are. That if there's a problem with the coach, that can be discussed privately and up to management to deal with. Become public and do that is they just put more of a target on yourself in some respects, but also it's undermining the coach's authority.
You, Sean?
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's. I don't think it's good. What's happening is it's Zucker again. He was the one who got just absolutely thrown to the wolves in the summer with all these different trade rumors. When he's one of those guys who just has fully embraced being a member of the Minnesota Wild and the community there. And he just, I think it's just another chapter in that. And with the way that the Wild are built, I think it's going to be interesting to see if, when, or how big that tear down is come the end of this season, trade deadline and into the draft. So I think that's where I think it's going to be very interesting to see because I think Zutter will get traded at the deadline for sure.
Yeah, kind of what everybody else said, like definitely shouldn't be saying that stuff to media at all. I don't think there's a problem with maybe not using the word calling them out, but if there's a legit reason to have a discussion with the coach, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it definitely should not be done in the public eye like that. It needs to be private. It's just a lot of other things. Some things really shouldn't be necessarily discussed in a public forum.
Yeah, and we're always looking for that quote, and from the media's perspective, we want that quote because it creates some interest. But yeah, I don't think that was the best thing. I mean, he did apologize for it, although some people are disagreeing with that and saying that he didn't need to. But yeah, it was certainly quite fascinating, and the Wild are off to a terrible start. So, and there's been so much controversy with, as Sean mentioned, with that team. So, I think it is interesting what's going to happen there going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bruce Boudreau is going to be the first coach to get fired. It's hard to imagine somebody else being more on the hot seat than he is. So much so that you have a player speaking out about it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the player's job is to play and, try and help the team win. It's not to criticize the coaching. That's for others to worry about. But, Minnesota, it's just been, how many years now have they been going backward, it seems like? It's
ever since, I want to say it was not Ray Shero. Who was ever since, wasn't Fenton. Who was the GM before Fenton?
Oh, I don't know. You're putting me on the spot with that one there, Kevin. I was going to say ever since Bruce has been the coach, they've been going backwards. But as far as managers, I'm not certain on the history there.
Yeah, it seems like Boudreau didn't put him in a forward position then, for sure. They had Mike Yeo, and Mike Yeo, I mean, he wasn't successful in St. Louis, but, it seems like they've gone backward, and they never really addressed the Parise and Suter situation, and I don't think they ever got what they needed to get out of that one either, by the way.
No.
That was pretty, talk about contracts that are, bad. We don't talk about Parise and Suter enough in that one, but that's kind of put an albatross to the Wild as well. So, but it is going to be interesting going forward there.
It was Chuck Fletcher beforehand. He was there for almost 9 years.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, my brain is.
He was let go in the spring of 2018, and then they went with Fenton, and that lasted all of a year. So I think it's just they were just in that they fell victim to what a lot of teams fall victim to in trying to squeeze that last drop of competitiveness out of an older team, and they need to get younger and faster at this point, and the only way to do that is to tear it down and find a way to move on from some veterans.
It's true. Yep. For sure. Anything else we want to talk about in the NHL? Did I miss anything?
Well, the Leafs got a big win against Boston last night. Needed that. Didn't have their captain.
That's true.
A little bit of excitement in Leafland after everybody wanted to jump off the cliff about a couple of losses where they couldn't hold on to leads or defend worth anything.
Yeah, that was fascinating. And there's, of course, the Matthews-Marner, are they going to play, are they not going to play together, is now the latest controversy there. And, yeah, Tavares being out, frustrating for Tavares. And yeah, he scored a goal with a broken finger. Leaf Nation was jumping up and down. Okay, yes, that's true.
Yeah, and the Oilers are still doing well. They're 7-1 coming into tonight's game against Winnipeg, which is happening as we speak. No score in that game. Battle of a couple of Canadian teams there.
Yes,
and it's I can't help but notice, of course, how much more Draisaitl and McDavid have been playing together. But as long as they're getting wins, everybody's happy, right?
Yeah.
I think in terms of putting lines in blenders, I think what I've heard is that Dave Tibbett is not afraid to put the lines in the blender mid game for the Oilers. He'll play McDavid and Draisaitl apart. He'll play them together, and then just depends on the situation. So I think he's not afraid to try and figure this. Try and just do what he can to get the best out of it, and not to necessarily worry too much about sticking lines together and keeping them together.
I do think, I will say, I feel like they're playing a lot more together than they have in years. I will say that. There seems to be a bit more structure in the game than they've had in a while, so I will give them credit for that. And, you know, I know that there are some Flame fans, and it's a lot of people out there, it's like, look at the schedule. It's basically been, for the most part, the same schedule that the Flames have had. Like, the Red Wings have popped through Vancouver and Edmonton and Calgary.
Yeah.
The Flyers have done the same. I mean, the Flames have played more West Coast games, divisional games, but, you know, I mean, if you're going to, like, mock this schedule, the Flames have had a fairly similar schedule, so I don't know if that's a fair, accurate point, you know, but...
Other than the Canucks getting back-to-back matinee games, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I don't hear Canuck fans complaining about the Oilers schedule, like the Oilers saying Oilers are like, look at the schedule though. I mean,
yeah, just looking back at the fact that you have a Western team from the Pacific time zone flying out on an Eastern road trip, and you have them play back-to-back matinee games. Like, it makes no sense. That gives such a advantage to the home team more than you normally get.
Yeah,
because it's they were 10 a.m. starts in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's breakfast.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of soapboxing going on here. I see. I mean, other teams are affected by that, but not as dramatically. Those Americans like their afternoon games, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, there's West Coast NFL teams that have
do it with another American team.
Yeah.
Don't drag the Vancouver Canucks all the way across the continent and then force them to play at 10 a.m. their local time.
Yeah. Well, some of that, of course, is TV as well, right? I mean, to be in the hometown hockey window, well, that means Edmonton Winnipeg would not be the game, and there's all those other. I mean, I know it sounds like excuse making, but yeah, it does make it. It does affect the fans ultimately.
Yeah, I just don't understand why you would do that, and why, because you want every game to be as exciting as possible. And the problem with a lot of these afternoon games is they can be boring, just snooze fests, because the players aren't in their routine. They aren't fully prepared and not quite up to snuff. And why put a team in that position and put a game in that position when you could schedule it completely differently to make it so that you do have you are putting the best product out there as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would have been nice to see, say, today's game, Vancouver at New York Rangers, be scheduled for yesterday and have that fall in the Hockey Night in Canada window. Like that would have made a lot of sense. I mean, I could see how, the Rogers people would maybe see Vancouver, New Jersey as not really that, great of a matchup in terms of marquee value. But then again, they had Ottawa and Arizona, last night. So, yeah, I don't know. It's all head scratching stuff there.
Yeah, Ottawa, Arizona, and then you have even the Vancouver, New Jersey had more marquee names. You have PK Subban, you have Taylor Hall, you have the Hughes
of Palooza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, that I kind of have to agree with Sean in terms of like how you lay that out is a bit bizarre to me. From traffic logistical sense, but even if a TV sense, like it's a 1:00 Eastern game is not necessarily going to be appointment viewing for people on a Saturday. Like I do agree. I wonder why that wasn't on Hockey Night in Canada. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And why you couldn't put this Canuck Ranger game in a hometown hockey window, like here's my soapbox. Like, I don't understand how hometown hockey needs to be one simple game. Like, why can't it be 3 games that everyone can watch regionally like they do with Hockey Night in Canada? Like, I just don't... Like, I'm confused how that works. Like...
Yeah. Like, I don't know that answer either. If anyone has a bitch about the Hockey Night in Canada thing here, I think it is the Montreal Canadiens who only get 6 games on Hockey Night in Canada, and 4 of them are with Toronto, and the Canadian games against any other Western Canadian team are not on Hockey Night in Canada. That is bizarre to me. How that happened. Like the Canadiens Canucks not on Hockey Night in Canada. Canadiens Oilers not on Hockey Night in Canada. Canadiens Flames not on Hockey Night in Canada. That is odd to me. Yeah, well, they have one of the Vancouver-Toronto matchups not on Hockey Night in Canada either this year, which was, usually both of them were.
Well, either that or a Wednesday, because that's the other national night, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head what the schedule is, but I'd be surprised if they aren't doing a little bit of shuffling it to make the Wednesday nights as good appointment viewing as much as Saturdays. So, and then you also have, I think Thursdays also get some national attention as well now. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's some of it that definitely is head scratching. So.
We know the Oilers are quite prominently shown for national windows. Yeah. The Oilers.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, well, I think they do. Already, you got McDavid. The Canucks are quite prominently shown because they're the biggest Western Canadian market. You got basically all of the province of BC that follows the Canucks for the most part. You're splitting Alberta, and then you're splitting Alberta, and then you've got Manitoba with Winnipeg. But in terms of the Western, I think it makes sense to give the Canucks more. If you're gonna spend all your time trying to shove Toronto down our throats because that's the biggest market, then I don't understand why you aren't trying to do that with Vancouver when that's basically your second biggest English speaking market.
Well, it goes back to what we've talked about off air a few times is in regards to preseason games. Those are the only 2 teams that Sportsnet has preseason deals with.
Yeah.
That there is that reasoning there.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Frustrating and head scratching, and if I'm a Winnipeg, I'll stay off my soapbox. I'm done with my soapbox. Heidi, did you have a question for us?
I don't have a question for you, but while you were on your soapbox there, Sam Bennett is now out of the game tonight.
Oh.
I think I had heard that he might have gotten injured last night. There was a little bit of speculation about that. So I think that means Alan Quine's going to play tonight. And that means that Alan Quine has now played a game of hockey for the third night in a row. Because he had 2 Heat games on Friday and Saturday.
Wow.
So that's my breaking news.
That is something.
He's earning his money now.
Yeah. Well, wasn't he supposed to play anyway?
No, they called him up just to kind of, because there was speculation that Sam Bennett was hurt, and that's why they had to call somebody up, right? So, there was rumors about that this morning, so I think that's why he's not skating, because they just went out for warm-up. So this was Derek Wills that just tweeted this about 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
And Quine's just somebody that you can bring up from the Heat. So it works out that because it's a Sunday game and usually the Heat play on Friday and Saturday, that he might have to just play three games in a row.
Yeah, so the line is Monahan, Gaudreau, Lindholm, Backlund, Kachuk for Leak, Ryan, Lucic, Zarnik, Jankowski, Quine, and Reeder.
Yep.
There we go. And Anderson, Giordano, Hammond, Caniff, Stone, and Brody. There we go. And Talbot is playing goal. Right?
Yeah, and they switch up those that top defensive pairing again. So yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. Alan Quine's gonna have to really, I don't know, have some coffee or something, because that's ridiculous.
I like that.
Yeah, have some coffee, Heidi.
Players are preparing with coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever hockey players have, but but 3 nights in a row, that's insane.
Yes, it is. Yes,
that's actually not too out of the ordinary for the AHL either. So.
No, that's true actually.
Especially with how spread out that league is now. Whenever these East Coast teams that head out to the California, now they end up playing 3-4 games in a row just to get those games in. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fascinating to watch how much they play Quine tonight too. We recorded this before the Anaheim game started, so if you're listening to it after, that's why we are not reacting to the Anaheim game. But I think that's going to do it for us for now. Tyler, how do we follow you?
I'm on Twitter at tnoble, Tnoble.
Sean?
I am BeardyCanucks03 on Twitter.
Heidi?
I am Heidi Amazeballs on Twitter, HEID Amazeballs.
And, of course, there's Chris at Schneids. Devin is at Gordo9. I'm at KVOLE. Follow Podcast Hockey on Facebook. And just a reminder, tomorrow's Election Day. And that's all I will say. Tomorrow's Election Day. If you go vote, vote. If you don't, you don't. But tomorrow's Election Day. Anyway, thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all soon. Bye for now.